Hello, friends. So today I'm trying out a different video format because 3 days ago I saw that the Diary of CEO Stephen Bartlett, the podcast host, released a bomb episode about AI agent. This format is a debate format, and he invites 3 different guests from various different backgrounds. I watched it for you. It was 2.5 hours long. And I also noted down all the moments that I think was really interesting. We have the Amjad. His name is Amjad Masad. So this guy is the CEO of Replit, which is basically a software, and he's like tech entrepreneur living in Silicon Valley here. Another guy is Brett Weinstein. I think I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, or maybe wrong. So he is actually evolutionary psychologist, which is very interesting. And so Amjad is more like the optimistic guy because he's a tech entrepreneur and he focuses on the positive side of AI in the debate. And Brett is focusing on mostly the pessimistic side and ethics and compliance. And the other guy is Daniel Presley. He's an entrepreneur, and I believe he's now helping other entrepreneurs grow and scale their businesses. This video is 2.5 hours. I watched it for you from the beginning till the end. I also noted down all the minutes that we're going to watch together. So we're going to skip really quick and watch what I think was the key moments in this episode. And I'm also going to give my 2 cents. Okay, let's get started.
I think a lot of people don't realize how massive the positive impact AI is going to have on their life.
Well, I would argue that the idea that this AI disruption doesn't lead us to human catastrophe is optimistic. For example, people are going to be unemployed in huge numbers.
You agree with that, don't you?
Yes. If your job is as routine as it comes, it's gone in the next couple of years. But it's going to create new opportunities for wealth creation.
Let me put it to you this way. We've created a new species and nobody on Earth can predict what's going to happen.
We are joined by 3 leading voices to debate the most disruptive shift in human history, the rise of AI.
And they're answering the questions you're most scared about.
This technology is going to get so much more powerful. And yes, we're going to go through a period of disruption, but at the other end.
Actually, Amjad, when I started using Replit, for me, it was I freaked out, but Amjad, who are you? And what are you doing?
So I started programming at a very young age. I built my first business when I was a teenager. I used to go to internet cafes and program there. And I realized that they don't have software to manage the business. I was like, oh, why don't you create accounts? Why don't you have a server? It took me 2 years to build that piece of software. And that sort of embedded in my mind this idea that, hey, there's a lot of people in the world with really amazing ideas, especially in the context where they live in, that allows them to build businesses. However, the main source of friction between an idea and software, or call it an idea and wealth creation, is infrastructure, is physical infrastructure, is meaning a computer in front of you. It is an internet. You conjured water.
I conjured water from my mind.
Yeah.
And it's shown up here with us.
And it clearly thinks we need a lot.
Yeah. But just to define the term AI agent for someone that's never heard the term before.
Yeah. Yeah. So I assume most of the audience now are familiar with ChatGPT, right? You can go in and you can talk to an AI. It can search the web for you. It has a limited amount of tools. Maybe it can call a calculator to do some addition and subtraction for you. But that's about it. It's a request response style. Agents are when you give it a request and they can work indefinitely until they achieve a goal or they run into an error and they need your help. It's an AI bot that has access to tools. Those tools are access to a web browser like Operator, access to a programming environment, say like Replit, access to credit cards. The more tools you give the agent, the more powerful it is. Of course, there's all these considerations around security and safety and all of that stuff. But the most important thing is that AI agent will determine when it's finished executing. Today, AI agents can run for anywhere between 30 seconds to 30 minutes. There's a recent paper that came out that's showing that every 7 months, the number of minutes that the agent can run for is doubling. So we're at like 30 minutes now. In 7 months, we're going to be at an hour, then 2 hours. Pretty soon.
What? Did I heard that correctly? I think last time when I watched it for the first time, I missed that part. My friends, he just said every month, the amount, the time that these complex agent systems runs multiplies. And I cannot think of this AI agent system that runs hours and hours long just to finish one automation workflow, and think about how complex and how deep of an impact and how crazy things that it can do. Wow, this is crazy.
We're going to be at days. And at that point, AI agent is doing labor, is doing kind of human-like labor. And actually, OpenAI's new model, O3, beat the expectation. So it sort of doubled coherence over long horizon tasks. in just 3 or 4 months. So we're in this massive, and I mean, this exponential graph, that shows you the massive trend we're on.
Brett, give us a little bit of your background, but also I saw you writing some notes there.
So the Brett is the pessimistic guy, evolutionary psychologist, I think, but he's more concerned on the ethics side and detrimental impact on society.
There was a couple of words used there that I thought were quite interesting, especially considering what I know about you. The word God was used a few times.
Well, let me just say I'm an evolutionary biologist, and probably for the purposes of this conversation, it would be best to think of me as a complex systems theorist. One of the things that I believe is true about AI is that this is the first time that we have built machines that have crossed the threshold from the highly complicated into the truly complex. And I will say I'm listening to this conversation with a mixture of profound hope and dread, because it seems to me that it is obvious that the potential good that can come from this technology is effectively infinite. But I would say that the harm is probably 10 times. It's a bigger infinity. And the question of how we are going to get to a place where we can leverage the obvious power that is here to do good and dodge the worst harms, I have no idea. I know we're not prepared. So I hear you talking about agents, and I think that's marvelous. We can all use such a thing right away. And the more powerful it is, the better. The idea of something that can solve problems on your behalf while you're doing something else is marvelous. But of course, that is the precondition for absolute devastation to arise out of a miscommunication, right? To have something acting autonomously to accomplish a goal, you damn well better understand what the goal really is and how to pull back the reins in the event that it starts accomplishing.
I think at this part, he's being a bit overly pessimistic. I mean, sure, AI agents and agent systems operate autonomously. That's the whole point that we're building these systems, right? To automate mundane and really time-consuming and complex tasks. But the thing is, these agents are designed by humans. So that kind of makes me believe that we have kind of probably the full control of how they're going to make this flow, they're going to follow. So I don't agree that these like autonomous agents are doing stuff on their own and deciding. I mean, they're deciding and they have the reasoning, right? That's what makes them different than like pure LLMs and ChatGPT. But it's deciding based on the criterias and based on the guidance that the system builder, the agent builder, give to them. So I think he's being a little overly pessimistic here. Just my own thought.
Something that wasn't the goal. The potential for abuse is also utterly profound. You can imagine, just pick your dark mirror fantasy dystopia where something has been told to hunt you down until you're dead, and it sees that as a technical challenge. So I don't know quite how to balance a discussion about all of the things that can clearly come from this that are utterly transcendent. I mean, I do think it is not inappropriate to be invoking God or biblical metaphors here. You're producing water seemingly from thin air. I believe that does have an exact biblical parallel. So in any case, the power is here, but so to
start earning $1 million a month. And a lot of people are going to say, hey, I can't even get a job for $15 an hour. There's going to be...
This is so true. I can already tell this is happening. I mean, this was kind of happening, this post-COVID online business explosion. It literally exploded, right? The content creators, e-commerce people, and all the people like doing online business. They can literally have a couple of people in their team and they can hit like a couple $1 million in a year in revenue and profits. So it's already like it was already going in that direction with leveraging AI agents and AI workforce, I call it now. You can literally, as one person, build an entire workforce that can work for 24/7. Without any mistake most of the time. The hardest part is actually building that system to work for you, not operating it. So once you're able to do that, the sky is the limit. But the thing is, it's hard to build. It's hard to understand your workflows and automate them and design a custom system that works for you and for your business, right? What I believe is when people prioritize learning about agents or working with other companies or professionals that can help them build these systems as a workforce, those are the ones that are going to make a couple $1 million even a month or like a year. doesn't matter, like as long as you make a million, right? But on the other side, like people are totally lost it, lost their jobs. They're not following up with the AI and what they can do. They're not learning. They're not adaptable. Those people are going to have extremely rough time in the next couple of years. I mean, in my previous video, I just literally talked about even highly paid and highly advanced, like high paying, stressful, really highly cognitive white-collar jobs are being eliminated. These jobs are software engineers, analysts, investment bankers, venture capitalists. Like maybe these companies are going to need just one person instead of 3% because a lot of tools are emerging doing literally entire coding for you and entire analysis for you by triangulating multiple sources of information that a senior analyst could do in a couple of hours. These complex agents are doing it in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and also preparing the slides for you to present to executives, right? So it's not these low paying or blue collar, it's literally starting from the high paying jobs. So just something to think about.
Kind of assumption that this will all be done on the up and up. And I do want to I am not a doomer. I agree that the doomers are likely incorrect, that their fears are misplaced. But I do think we have a question of a related rates problem. I said the potential for good here is infinite and the potential for bad is 10 times, right? What I mean is there are lots of ways in which this obviously empowers people to do things that they were going to be otherwise stuck in the mundane process of learning to code and then figuring out how to make the code work and bring it to market and all of that. And this solves a lot of those problems. And that's obviously a good thing. Really, what we should want is the wealth creation object as quickly as we can get there. But the problem is, as much as that hyper creative individual is empowered to make wealth, the person who is interested in stealing may be even more empowered. And I'm concerned about that at a pretty high level. The abuse cases may outnumber the use cases, and we don't have a plan for what to do about that.
Can I give you a quick introduction here, like the optimistic view? OpenAI invented, the first version of GPT came out in 2019. 2020 was GPT-2. And so OpenAI, now they get a lot of criticism and lawsuit from Elon Musk that they're no longer open source, right? They used to be. The reason is in GPT-2, we're no longer going to open source this technology. Opportunities for abuse, such as, influencing elections, stealing, grandma's credit card and so on and so forth.
I agree with that. I mean, sure, we can blow up the world with AI, right? If AI is used in really catastrophic ways and we lose control and the humanity chooses bad over the doing good with AI. I mean, eventually, I think these build like the creators and managers of these AI LLMs or these like big AI companies, they're not going to want that, right? So they're going to do everything to control and to use it for good, but also to make more money, obviously. But if it's going to result in catastrophe, they're also not going to be able to make money. I'm kind of like thinking optimistic here, but obviously I also acknowledge the fact that it's a challenging task to control how bad things can go if it's in the wrong hands. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't you say, Brett, that it is kind of surprising how little...
I don't know how much abuse we've seen so far. I don't know how any of us do. And I also, even the example that you suggest, where ChatGPT is no longer open source to prevent abuse, I'm taking their word for it that that's the motivation. Where as a systems theorist, I would say, well, if you had a technology that was excellent at enhancing your capacity to wield power, then open sourcing it is a failure to capitalize on that, and that the most remunerative use is to keep it private and then either sell the ability to the number of ways in which you can abuse this technology. Let's take a couple. What is to stop somebody from training LLMs on an individual's creative output and then creating an LLM that can outcompete that individual, can effectively not only produce what they would naturally produce over the course of a lifetime, but can extrapolate from it and can even hybridize it with the insights of other people, so that effectively those who have the LLM can train it on the creativity of others, not cut them in on the use of that insight. You can effectively end up putting yourself out of business by putting your creative ideas in the world where they get sucked up as training data for future LLMs. That is unscrupulous, but it's effectively guaranteed. In fact, it's already happened. So that's
Yeah, I mean, this is already happening. And I don't agree with this because it's kind of saying, oh, books are released or a website is released and everyone can reach it and everyone can copy it. But that doesn't usually work. Copycats never win. Also, I believe that, inspiration and learning from others' creativity, but eventually using it to contribute to our own perspective. Nothing is wrong with that. Even things in academia work that way, right? Like people always read related articles, watch related, like when I'm creating a YouTube video, I watch related YouTube videos and I get inspiration from them. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if you program your AI agent in a way that's going to stall entire work, then it's a different issue. But I mean, it's true in book publishing. So if you copy the entire book, you will be penalized. Like, there's nothing wrong with this. I don't think it's any different than like copyright rules.
problem. And likewise, what would stop somebody from interacting with an individual and training an LLM to become like a personalized con artist, something that would play exactly to your blind spot?
That is starting to happen. People get phone calls and it sounds like their daughter, and I've lost my phone and I'm borrowing a friend's phone and all of that sort of stuff. What's interesting is that I think you make a really good point. I worry about the impact on society, and yet when I look at every single individual who uses AI regularly, it almost has nothing but profoundly positive impact on their life. I look at people like, I was just spending some time with my parents-in-law who are in their 70s and early 80s, and they use AI regularly for all sorts of things that they find incredibly valuable and that improves the quality of their life. I personally did an M&A, a mergers and acquisitions deal, where I bought a company last year, and the AI...
Some context to that, because Amjad, I saw the interview you did in a newsletter in 2023 where at the end of days, if the vision of AGI that some of these companies have comes to bear, because it's called the singularity moment, because you can't really predict what happens after that. And so like, how would you even prepare for that? And you want to prepare for the more likely world, and that world that you can actually predict is a world where, yes, there's like a map and there's like insane compounding effects of technology, and it's pretty hard to keep up. From that, it appeared that in 2023, you were saying a similar thing to Brett in terms of, we can't see around the corner here because it is a singularity.
So you also used AGI, artificial general intelligence. It'd be interesting to know what your definition of AGI is, so that...
Yeah. So what I was saying there is, even if I'm wrong, that you can actually create a unbounded, seemingly conscious artificial intelligence that can entirely replace humans and can act autonomously in a way that even humans can't act, and can coordinate across different AIs, different data centers to take over the world. Even if that's, so the definition of AGI is artificial general intelligence, meaning that AI can acquire new skills efficiently in the same way that humans can acquire skills. Right now, AIs don't acquire skills efficiently. They require a massive amount of energy and compute, entire data center of compute to acquire these skills. And I think there's a limit on how general intelligence can get. I think for most of the time, we're lagging in terms of what humans are capable of doing. The singularity is based on this concept of intelligence. Once you create an artificial general intelligence, that intelligence will be able to modify its own source code and create the next version that is much more intelligent. And the next version creates the next version and the next, for infinity, right? Within a week, perhaps within milliseconds at some point, right? Because it might invent new computing substrate and all of that. Perhaps it will use quantum computing. And so then you have this intelligence explosion in a way that it is impossible to predict how the world is going to be. And what I'm saying is, this is sort of like an end of time story. Like, how would you even prepare for that? So if that's coming, like, why would I spend my time preparing for, I think it's unlikely to happen.
Can't see around the corner.
Yeah, but I'd rather prepare, what I was saying there, I'd rather prepare for the more likely world in which we have access to tremendous power, but the world's not ending and humans are still important.
I don't know why you say more likely. I mean, I think the structure of your argument is sound. You would prepare for the world that might happen, for which you can prepare. There's literally no point in trying to prepare for a world you can't predict at all. The only thing you can do is just sort of upgrade your own skills and pay attention. But if I have one message for the technologists, it's that your confidence about what this can and cannot do is misplaced because you have, without noticing, stepped into the realm of the truly complex. In the truly complex, your confidence should drop to near zero that you know what's going on. Are these things conscious? I don't know. But will they be? Highly likely they will become conscious, and that we will not have a test to tell us whether that has happened?
Elon Musk predicts that by 2029, we will have AI with us, AGI, that surpasses the combined intelligence of all humans. And Sam Altman actually wrote a blog 3 months ago that I read where he said, we're confident now, Sam Altman being the founder of OpenAI, which created ChatGPT, we're confident now that we know how to build AGI as we have traditionally understood it. When I put these things together, I go back to the central question of what role do humans have in the sort of professional output in GDP creation if it's smarter than all humans combined, if Elon Musk is correct there, and it's able to take actions across the internet and continue to learn. This is like a central question that I'm hoping I can answer today, which is like, where do we go?
I mean, in my vision of the world,
This is the one single important biggest question to ask, I think, for the future of humanity. Let's listen.
we're in the creative seat. We're sitting there where
I agree.
we are controlling swarms of intelligent being to do our job. The way you run your business. For example, you're sitting at a computer, you have an hour to work, and you're going to launch like 1,000 SDR, sales, representative to go like grab as many leads as possible. And you're generating a new update on Replit for your website here. And then on this side, you're actually, you have an AI that's crunching data about your existing business to figure out how to improve it. And these AIs are kind of somehow all coordinating together. And I am trying to privilege the human. Like this is my mission, is to build tools for people. I'm not building tools for agents, and agents are a tool. And so ultimately, not only do I think that humans...
I like his perspective. I think as a business person, we have a very similar perspective. I also see things in a more optimistic way. But when I think about my future and one day how I spend my future, the reality is we're not going to need to work crazy hours in future. I think if you want to do more and if you want to keep creating more, sure, you can work however you want and 10 hours, 15 hours. But if you build the right systems, it can do all the mundane tasks for you. And the entire thing, like all the things that you have to do is just check the systems, guide them, look at the strategy, and, continue doing the things that you enjoy doing. If it's a creative project, focus on that. If it's coming up with the new ideas, researching new ideas, you can build an obviously like entire AI agent for that, but like reviewing it, thinking about it, and launching different stuff by leveraging this huge AI workforce in your business. I think it's going to be fun. I would love that in future.
Have a privileged position in the world and in the universe. We don't know where consciousness is coming from. We don't really have the science to explain it. I think humans are special. That's one side, is my belief that humans are special in the world. And another side, which I understand that the technology today, and I think for the foreseeable future, is going to be functioning as training data. So there was this whole idea of like, what if ChatGPT generates it up?
Is what jobs, because I know that you have this perspective, what jobs are going to be made redundant in a world where I am sat here as a...
Second important question, what jobs are going to be gone and redundant? And I already talked about my own view on this. I think it's going to start with this white collar jobs, like analyst jobs, coders. I mean, it already started, right? So I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be looking very different and people are not going to need to work crazy hours. So we all have to really think about this and what we want to do in the next couple of years.
With 1,000 AI agents.
Right.
I was thinking of all the names of the people in my company who are currently doing those jobs. I was thinking about my CFO when you talked about processing business data, my graphic designers, my video editors, etc. So what jobs are going to be impacted?
Yeah, all of those. So I think...
And what do they do?
Maybe this is useful for the audience. I think if your job is as routine as it comes, your job is gone in the next couple of years. So meaning...
Yeah, routine jobs are already gone and replaced by really simple agents. And even like more complex multi-agent systems can replace entire group of senior analysts and coders and probably other titles that I couldn't think of right now.
If in those jobs, like for example, quality assurance jobs, data entry jobs, you're sitting in front of a computer and you're supposed to click and type things in a certain order. Operator and those technologies are coming on the market really quickly, and those are going to displace a lot of labor.
Accountants, I mean, I've just pulled it in my foot and they did an MRI scan and I had to wait a couple of days for someone to look at the MRI scan and tell me what it meant.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's gone.
I think the healthcare ecosystem is hard to predict because of regulation. And again, there's so many limiting factors on how this technology can permeate the economy because of regulations and people's willingness to take it. But things unregulated jobs that are purely text in, text out. If your job, you get a message and you produce some kind of artifact that's like probably text or images, that job is at risk.
So just to give you some stats here as well, about 50% of Americans who have a college degree currently use AI. The stats are significantly lower for Americans without a college degree. So you can see how a splinter might.
That is too low. I mean, I would lose my mind if I don't use ChatGPT in a day because it's how much time it's saving me. I can't believe only 50% of the college grads are using in and we're talking about US and think about other countries and different places of the world.
Emerge there and that crack will widen because people like us at this table are all messing around with it. But my mum and dad in Plymouth in the southwest of rural England haven't got, they just figured out iPhones. So I got them an iPhone and now they're texting me back. AI is a million miles away. And if I start running off with my AGI and my agents, that gap is going to widen. Women are disproportionately affected by automation, which is what you were talking about there, with about 80% of working women in an at-risk job compared to just over 50% of 80%, while those requiring a bachelor's degree have an automation risk of just 20%. So we can see again how this will cause a sort of
It's also huge.
Is it only a 20% though? Because as I talked about in my previous video, and you can go back and watch it if you haven't watched it yet, based on the recent reports from, I think it was from Deloitte and McKinsey, it's like 2/3 of the white collar jobs. But I don't think he's just talking about the 9-to-5 jobs in general. So yeah, it could be like 20%. Man.
Huge risk with business process outsourcing, which is essentially Western countries sending jobs to India, to the Philippines. Like at the moment, millions of people have been lifted out of poverty through the ability to do those kind of business process outsourcing jobs. And those are all going to go.
But they're going to have 1,000 employees.
But these people are actually already transitioning to training AIs, So there's going to be a massive industry around training AIs.
Until they're trained.
Well, no, you have to continuously acquire new skills. And this is what I'm talking about.
Yep.
I mean, this is, again, if AI is a function of its data, then you need increasingly more data. And by the way, we ran out of internet data.
I was actually thinking, interestingly, that this might not be great for the...
This is so interesting. I think that's exactly how it's going to look like. Like remaining white collar jobs are going to be the ones that are training these AI systems that's eventually going to replace either their job or their colleague's job. And like there are only a couple of people monitoring these AI systems and doing maybe more managerial work, and remainder of people, these analysts and coders and I don't know, like other 9-to-5 jobs, people working on the computer, basically white collar. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, it's crazy to think about, but it's a 2/3 of the jobs based on the latest report from, I think it was from Deloitte. I'll put it in the description.
United States or the UK, the Western world, because it is going to be a leveler.
Yeah.
Where now a kid in India doesn't need a Silicon Valley office and $7 million in investment to throw up a software company, basically.
My belief is that, so I have a more broad definition of AGI and the singularity. And for me, AGI is, do we have artificial general intelligence in terms of, generally speaking, can AI just do stuff that humans used to be able to do? And we've already crossed that point. We have this general intelligence that we can now all access. And 800 million people a week are now using ChatGPT. It's exploded in the last...
Optimistic, and that we need to start preparing right now. What are the rights of a person who has had whatever it is that they've invested in completely erased from the list of needs? Is that person responsible for not having anticipated AI coming? And is it their problem that they are now starving and they're being eyed by others as, a useless eater? I don't think so.
How is it different than when the looming machine came and the textile workers, that resulted in the Luddite sort of revolution? How is it different than any time in history when a lot of people out of jobs?
I would say scale and speed. That's how it's different.
Mm-hmm.
And the scale and speed is going to result in an unprecedented catastrophe because...
I agree with him on this because back then, I mean, if you think about the Industrial Revolution, sure, it eliminated a lot of jobs, but it also created a lot of opportunity and jobs. And kind of what like others saying, this is what's happening with the AI revolution. But the thing is, since these advanced technology can develop itself very at crazy speed, these changes and these transformations not happening in a couple of decades. It's happening in couple of years, actually. Like when you think about how ChatGPT was 2 years ago compared to what we can do with the complex AI agent systems in this year, 2025, it's crazy how far it improved.
The rate at which people are going to be simultaneously sidelined, not just in one industry, but across every industry, is just simply...
and it also did actually happen. There was for the first 50 years of industrialization, from like late 1700s to early 1800s, the Charles Dickens novels are essentially people coming from the farms who were displaced, arriving in cities, kids living on the streets. The British decided to pick everyone up and send them over to Australia, which is where I came from. There was this massive issue of displacement. I think we're going to go into a high velocity economy where rather than this long arc of career that lasts 45 years, we're going to have these very fast careers that last 10 months to 36 months. And you invent.
Well, 10 months is too aggressive, but I hope it doesn't last 10 months. I agree with this because it's so fast paced, so fast moving right now. You have to just keep learning and keep being adaptable, keep learning new skills and keep learning how you can use AI to work faster, better, more efficient. Because if like, especially if you're a business, if you don't do that, then there is no way that you're going to be able to compete because everyone's going to be on the internet using these AI systems. And there's no way with manual effort you can compete with these businesses. So I agree with that. And as an employee, it's the same story, right? The companies are going to use different technologies because they want to make their businesses more profitable. And with that, they are going to expect from their employees more, skills. They can use these tools to save costs and, drive more profits. So yeah, it's looking interesting in the next couple of months and couple of years.
Something, you take it to market, you put together a team of 5 to 10 people who work together, you then get disrupted.
Can I mention a story here? An entrepreneur that used Replit in a similar way. His name is Billy Howell. You can find him on YouTube, on the internet. He would go to Upwork and he would find what people are asking for, different requests for certain apps, technologies. Then he would take what they're asking for, put it into making an application, call them, tell them, I already have your application. Would you pay $10,000 for it? And so that's sort of an arbitrage opportunity that's there right now.
That's not arbitrage. That's that.
What is it? How is it that?
You have somebody who has an idea that can be brought to market and somebody else is cryptically detecting it and then selling back their own idea to them.
Well, they're paying them to do that. They're saying, I will give you 5.
Well, it doesn't matter if they're paying to do that. I believe, that's essentially what it means to put your work out there, right? This is happening all the time. Like YouTubers put out a video and it starts trending and everyone has the same title. A topic gains a lot of attention. Like AI is a hot topic right now. Everyone starts talking about AI. So that's not theft. If this would be theft, then like entire academic work would be theft, right? Because they're using these sources in their own articles. So this guy is just overly pessimistic about this, stealing someone else's work. But like, there's nothing wrong with getting inspiration from other people and create, of course, like if you're creating something of your own, obviously if you're violating the copyright rules, then it should be penalized. But it's already happening right now, like with the books, with the content, with everything, basically. So how is different in the age of AI?
Well, as if someone makes this for me.
Right. But this is what I more or less think is going to happen across the whole economy is that, yes, from this perspective, we can see that everybody is suddenly empowered to build a great business. Well, what do we think about the folks who are going to be displaced from the top? What are they going to think about all these people building all of these highly competitive businesses? And are they going to find a way to do, what venture capital has done or what record producers have done? What they're going to do is they're going to take their superior position at the top and they are going to take most of the wealth that is produced by all of these people who have these ideas that in a proper market would actually create businesses for them, and they're going to parasitize them.
I think that with this introduction of AI and AI agents, old value has moved. And now it's not going to be the case that the idea itself is the moat. And it's not going to be the case that resources are the moat. You still have to have, for example, like an audience. So if you're a podcaster now, you have 1 million followers on Twitter, you're in a prime position because you now have something that the great guy with a great idea with no audience has. You have inbuilt distribution. So I now think actually much of the game might be moving to like, it's still about taste and idea, but also the moat is.
I just talked about a couple of minutes ago. It's going to be so competitive out there. And same is true if you're looking for jobs because people are using complex AI agents to apply thousands of jobs. So how you're going to find a job, right? How are you going to stand out? So I think there's going to be movement to connect in real life. So that's going to be a huge value, like human-human connection and building trust and small communities. But also, as Steven said, people who figured out smart distribution are going to win because it's going to be so crowded out there that no matter how valuable the product or business or the service that you build, if you can't get it in front of your client, it doesn't matter.
One of the adaptation that will happen is people will seek humans and will seek proof of humanity.
Oh, I agree that authenticity is going to become the coin of the realm, and anything that can be faked or cheated is going to be devalued, and things, spontaneous jazz or, comedy that is interactive enough that it couldn't possibly have been generated with the aid of AI. Those things are going to become prioritized. Spontaneous oratory rather than
great.
Speeches.
Answers some of your questions.
That
No, it answers my question for the tiny number of people who are in a position to do those things.
Stephen, you used the word moat, which I think is a really important word for entrepreneurs. We have to have a moat. We think a lot about moats, and it's an industrial age. A lot of people don't even know what you mean by moat.
It's just the thing.
I often think about this idea of what are the moats that are left.
So to define how I define a moat, you've got a castle, and it's got a small circle of water around it. And once upon a time, that circle of water defended the castle from attack. And you can pull up the drawbridge so nobody can attack you very easily. It's a deep defense from something. It's your shield. It's your defense. And once upon a time, as an entrepreneur, I've got a software company in San Francisco called Third Web. And we raised almost $30 million. We have a team of 50 great developers. And much of our moat was, you can't compete with us because you don't have the 50 developers and the $30 million in the bank.
How much of that 30 million went to coding?
The vast majority of it. I mean, what else are we going to do? What else?
This is a good thing. I think moats are a bad thing. Let me make the argument there. So everyone is looking for moats. For example,
Well, basically, you don't need 50 developers now. You need like 5 to 10. And the question is, these companies can do much more with that amount of investment by only hiring 5 human developers and leveraging complex AI agent systems. It's just crazy to think about. That's the real power, you guys. That's the real power.
Like one of the more significant moats is network effects. So you can't compete with Facebook or Twitter because to move people from Facebook or Twitter, it's the collective action problem.
Yeah.
You need to move them all at once, because if one of them moves, then the network is not valuable. They'll go back. So you have this chicken and egg problem. Let's say that we have a more decentralized way of doing social networks. That will remove the power of Twitter to kind of censor, and I think to innovation because of regulation, and that's a bad thing.
On the regulation point, it's worth saying that when Trump came into power, he signed in a new law, which is called Removing Barriers to American Leadership in AI, which revokes previous AI policies that were deemed to be restrictive. Actually, when you think about where the funding is going in AI, it's going to 2 places. It's going to America, and it's basically going to China. That's the vast majority of investment. So with those two in competition, any regulation that restricts AI in any way is actually self-sabotage. This is, I live in Europe some of the time, and it's already annoying to me that when Sam Altman and OpenAI released the O3 model, this new incredible model, it's not in Europe because Europe has a regulation which prevents it from coming to Europe. So we're now at a competitive disadvantage, which Sam Altman's spoken about. And more broadly on this point of disruption, I was quite unnerved when I heard that Sam Altman's other startup was called WorldCoin. And WorldCoin was conceived with the goal of facilitating universal basic income, i.e. helping to create a system where people who don't have money are given money by the government just for being alive to help them cover their basic food and housing needs, which suggests to me that the guy that has built the biggest...
Well, if you guys know, a couple of years ago, UBI seemed like, like how it's going to happen. But now, after I saw what you can do with these like complex agent systems with AI and how many of the jobs are going to be basically just gone, what are all these people are going to do? If they're not system builders, if they're not entrepreneurs, if they're not creators, if they're not adaptable, which is like half of the people are not like that, what these people are going to do. And now I'm understanding that these people who came up with these concepts and who started these companies, like guys like Sam Altman, they already knew that it's going to go this way. And now we understand better, I guess. It's a little late, but we understand better.
This AI company in the world can see something that a lot of us can't see, which is there's
poison and the cure.
Yeah, there's going to need to be a system to just hand out money to people because they're not going to be able to survive.
I fundamentally disagree with that.
Which part do you disagree with?
I disagree that, first of all, that humans would be happy with UBI. I think that, a core value of humans, and be curious about the evolutionary reasons, is we want to be useful.
It's really important to know that a lot of the jobs that are at risk are the most high status, highly paid jobs in the world. Let's take the highest paid job in America, which is...
That's exactly what I said, guys, like 10 minutes ago.
An anesthesiologist. This is the highest paid job. And the majority of that job is observing a patient, knowing which type of medication would work best with their body, giving them the exact right amount, monitoring the impact of that on the body, and then making slight adjustments. the right technology, and any nurse will be able to do that job. And you might have one anesthesiologist on site supervising 10, 20, 30, 40 wards. And the technology is, doing the job, but that one person is there just to kind of supervise if something went wrong or if there was an ethical dilemma.
What's wrong with that? I mean, if the precision is better with AI.
Oh, no, there's nothing wrong with that except for the fact that a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people, have spent their entire life training to be that. They get an enormous amount of purpose and satisfaction about the fact that that's their career, that's their job.
To start considering, if we are about to find ourselves in this situation and we find some way of dealing with the basic needs of the large number of people who are going to be sidelined, what would a world have to look like in order for them to have real meaning, not pseudo meaning, not something that, superficially, a video game is not meaning?
This is a really good question. If people are not going to be crazy busy with their 9-to-5 jobs and basically how life is in America right now, what will be the point of life? Like what people are going to do to spend their time on? Everyone's going to play like video games? Like it's crazy. I think we have to be really smart and think about our future, really think about what kind of a life that we want to create, what we really enjoy. So I think self-discovery is going to be really critical here because somehow the world is changing really fast. And if you don't know where you want to go, what you want to do, then for sure you're going to be lost. That is coming.
Even if it feels very meaningful in the moment. I think that would be a worthy investment for us to figure out how to produce it. But frankly, I'm not expecting us to either have that conversation or get very far down that road. I think it's much more likely that we will squander the wealth dividend that will be produced by AI.
Interestingly, you also see in Western countries that when we get more abundance, we start having less kids. And we're already seeing this sort of population decline in the Western world, which was kind of scary. And I think it's often associated with affluence. The more money someone makes, the less likely they are to want to have children, the more they try and protect their freedoms. But also on this point of AI, relationships are hard. My girlfriend is happy sometimes and not happy other times. And I have to go through that struggle with her of working on the relationship. Children are hard. And if we are optimizing ourselves, and much of the reason that I sustain the struggle with my girlfriend is, I'm sure, from some evolutionary reason, because I want to reproduce and I want to have kin. But if I didn't have to deal with the struggle that comes with human relationships, romantic or platonic, there's going to be a proportion of people that actually choose that outcome. And I wonder what's going to happen to birth rates in such a scenario, because we're already struggling. We're already in a situation where we used to be having 5 children per woman in the 1950s to about 2 in 2021. And we're seeing a decline. If you look at South Korea, their fertility rate has fallen to 0.72, the lowest recorded globally. And if this trend continues, the country's population could halve by 2100. So yeah, relationships, connections. And also, I guess we've got to overlay that with the loneliness epidemic, which is they promised us social connection when social media came about. When we got Wi-Fi connections, the promise was that we would become more connected. But it's so clear that because we spend so long alone, isolated, having our needs met by Uber Eats drivers and social media and TikTok and the internet, that we're investing less in the very difficult thing of going and making a friend and going and finding a girlfriend. Young people are having sex less than ever before. Everything that is associated with the difficult job of making in real life connections seems to be falling away.
I'll make a case that everything that we've discussed here,
Loneliness epidemic, basically.
all the negative things around loneliness, around meaning, they're already here. And I don't think blaming technology for all of it is the right thing. I think there are a lot of things that happened is of existing human, impulses and motivations.
Well, I wanted to go back to where you started, because I do think that this maybe is the fundamental question. Why is it that we are already living in a world that is not making us happy? And is that the responsibility of technology? And I don't think it's exactly technology. Human beings, among our gifts, are fundamentally technological, whether we're talking about quantum computing or flint knapping an arrowhead. What has happened to us that has created the growing, spreading, morphing dystopia is a process that Heather and I, in our book, A Hunter-Gatherer's Guide to the 21st Century, call hypernovelty. Hypernovelty is the fact of the rate of change outpacing our capacity to adapt to change. And we are already well past the threshold here where the world...
Yeah, this is exactly what's happening. Back then, with the Industrial Revolution, sure, everything changed a lot, but the pace of the change wasn't as fast as today's pace. Since AI can develop itself, agents can build agents or help building faster agents or something, not completely building from scratch, but it's crazy. The advancement is just happening at really fast pace, and it's incomparable to Industrial Revolution age. It's crazy.
The world that we are young in is not the world that we are adults in. And that mismatch is making us sick across multiple different domains. So the question that I ask is, Is the change that you're talking about going to reduce the rate of change, in which case we could build a world that would start meeting human needs better, open opportunities for pursuing meaningful work? Or is it going to accelerate the rate of change, which is, in my opinion, guaranteed to make us worse? Or is it going to be just, one event horizon after the next? If it's the latter, mantle us.
Individual use cases, it's having a profoundly positive impact, including for me, it's having a very positive impact. So it's one of these things where I wonder, what is that we need to teach people at school so that they understand the world that we're going into? Because one of the biggest issues that we're having is that we're sending kids to school with this blueprint, this template that...
Well, I think that education system is so slow in terms of updating itself. It's never going to be able to reach the most updated version of what we should teach our kids. And that's why the traditional education system is kind of dying, right? I mean, people are going, I am personally getting more benefit just watching a free 2-hour YouTube course or a paid 6-hour Udemy course on a specific topic that I need to learn real fast to use it in my business. Then paying thousands of dollars for a college degree and never using that skills and knowledge and things like concepts I learned in real life again. So I believe that it's going to be a huge change in the education space because of the regulations and curriculum, and overall system is just not able to update itself as fast as new skills and new knowledge comes up.
They're going to have this long arc career that no longer exists, that essentially we're treating them like learning LLMs. And we're saying, okay, we're going to prompt you. You're going to give us the right answer. You're going to hallucinate it if possible. And, and then we go, okay, now go off into the world. And they go, oh, but wait a second. I don't know how money works. I don't know how society works. I don't know how my brain works. I don't know how I'm meant to handle this novelty problem.
That's right. Education system wasn't perfect in the last couple of years anyway. It's just going to get worse. What they taught us in our schools, I am not even using single thing I learned in a school. Plus, they don't teach you about money. They don't teach you about how to start a business. They don't teach you about all the good things that you would do to live, a prosperous and abundant life, because they want to control you. They want to raise great, employees. But being a great employee in today's age is a perfect recipe for a disastrous career because AI is taking over your job. So you have to learn new things. So you have to be probably more entrepreneurial. Those were the things that were never taught us in the school, and no matter which country you're from. I'm originally from Turkey. It wasn't taught to us. And I know that here in US, it was not taught to kids.
I'm not sure how to, in a social situation, and ask if they want to go on a date. So all the important things that actually are the important milestones that people want to be able to hit and that technology can actually have an impact on, we get no user manual. So I think one of the biggest things that has to happen is we have to equip young people all through school to actually prepare them for the world that's coming or the world that's here.
Dan, what are you excited about with AI? From an individual level, but also from a societal level?
Yeah, well, the big ones are healthcare and education. I mean, it's ridiculous that you are sitting there in pain, having had an MRI, and there just hasn't been someone to look at that MRI yet and tell you what to do. And that could easily be solved. There's all sorts of healthcare issues and also not only that, throughout the entire world, there are places that just don't have general practitioners and they don't have, medical advisors, and the breakthroughs in global education could be transformational on the planet. I'm excited at an individual level that I think the industrial age created a bunch of jobs that are very dehumanizing, and we've just kind of gotten used to them and put up with them. The idea that work should be repetitive and, you just repeat the same loop over and over and over again. And over a 10-year period of time, you might get, graduated up one gear and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's very human. The idea that...
Actually, I totally agree with this. And that's the thing that really excites me about, because when I think about 9-to-5 jobs, if complex AI agent systems are automating the repetitive, the boring, the soul-sucking parts of the job, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Did you really want to live your life doing those tasks anyway? Now, the good thing is happening. I mean, maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but if you can find a way to really do the things that you enjoy doing and make money from it and create some value leveraging AI, obviously, this is not going to be able to done by everyone, and that's very normal. But if you can find a way to do that, then you just set yourself free, right? It can turn into a really good thing that people spend their days doing things that they enjoy, doing more humanly things, and not sit on a desk under a fluorescent lamp for 10 hours a day and commute 4 hours at like 3 hours a day. I'm optimistic and happy about that future, and hopefully it's going to turn out great.
That you could be simultaneously writing a book, launching a business, running a team, launching a festival, having an event.
Exactly.
That you could actually be doing this kind of like mini kingdom work where you've got this little, ecosystem around you of fun things that you're involved in. That is actually made possible for a vast majority of people if they embrace these kind of tools. You can live an incredibly fulfilling and amazing and impactful existence. I know that I do as a result of having these tools in my life. Like I'm doing things that I could have only dreamed about as a kid.
And what would you say to entrepreneurs? I know you work with thousands of entrepreneurs. What are you telling them in terms of their current businesses or business opportunities that you're foreseeing?
So I think that small teams have infinite leverage now, and that when you have a team of, say, 5 to 10 people who share an incredible passion for a meaningful problem in the world, and they want to see that meaningful problem solved, and they come together in the spirit of entrepreneurship to solve that problem.
Yes.
That little 5 to 10 person team, armed with the technology that we now have available, you can have a big impact. You can make a lot of.
This is exactly the thing that excites me about as a one-person business, because with the AI agents and with like all the projects that we're working on now, like essentially, I'm not going to need to hire 5 or 10 people. And even though I hire 5 or 10 people, with the integration of the smart AI workforce and AI systems, they're going to do much more smarter work, much more strategic work, monitoring these systems and working with them together, bringing in those like human creativity and human strategy and human perception part to overall business. And essentially doing the work of maybe like 100 people. So with 100 people, like with 5 or 10 people, you're going to be able to have the impact of 100 people as a business. And I think the real skill is really figuring out how you can make this happen, either in your one-person business or small 5 to 10 person business.
Money, you can have a lot of fun. You can solve meaningful problems in the world. You can scale solutions. You can probably do more in a 3-year window than most people did in a 30-year career. And then that little band of 5 to 10 people could either go together onto a new meaningful problem, or they could disband and, work on other meaningful problems with different teams.
In such a world where you have this sort of infinite leverage, but everyone else has access to the same infinite leverage, what becomes the USP? Going back to this idea of the moat, like what is the thing of value when we've all got access to $20 infinite leverage?
Smart.
Well, first of all, the first thing you need to understand is that this moment of time is the least competitive moment. Like, if you understand how to use these tools, you can start making money tomorrow. Like I see countless examples of people making thousands of dollars with these hustles that I talked about, or building businesses that generates millions of dollars in the first couple of months of existence. So I would say start moving now, start building things. So it's an unprecedented time of wealth creation. Clearly, at some point, as the market gets more efficient, as more and more people understand how to use these tools, there's less potential for, creating these massive businesses quickly. And we've seen this, like the dawn of the internet or dawn of the web, it was a lot easier to create Facebook than it is now. Then we had mobile. And for 3, 4, 5 years, it was very easy to create massive businesses, and then it became harder. Being just at the edge of what's possible is going to be very, very important over the next couple of years. And that gets me really excited, because the entrepreneurs who are paying attention are going to be having the most amount of fun, but they're also going to be able to make a lot of money.
How many applications have been built on Replit to date?
So I can talk about the millions of things that
Kind of enslavement. And I don't think it has to be. I think the potential here does allow us to refactor just about everything. Maybe we have finally arrived at the place where mundane work doesn't need to exist anymore, and the pursuit of meaning can replace it. But that's not going to happen automatically if we don't figure out how to make it happen. And I hope that we can recognize that the peril of this moment is best utilized if it motivates us to confront that question directly.
Each one of us has two.
Actually, I want to end there, because I think he finished his sentences perfectly, and kind of reiterating what I said before in this video. I really believe what we choose to believe and what we choose to do with the tools that eventually allow you to have more power, like money, like AI, like status. What you believe as a positive things that you can do with them, if you do them, you're going to win. Also, if you're going to be an early adopter, like the first mover, that's a huge advantage in the space of business, or even if you're looking for jobs. When you have these ability, these skills, these knowledge, and this experience using these complex AI systems to create much more impact compared to others, that's a leverage and power that's going to allow you to make a lot of money, create a lot of impact. And also, the best part is free up your time so you don't work a soul-sucking job that's eventually going to be replaced by AI, and just focus on creating impact, working a couple of hours a day, running your systems, strategizing your business, strategizing your work, and spend the rest of the time by reading, by cooking, by spending time with your loved ones, or just creating fun things. So I hope you like this video, and don't forget to subscribe my channel if you want to learn more about AI and the future of work and how you can use the advancements to start and grow your one-person business. I am always optimistic about future and AI, and with love.